Hi, I'm Beena Patel, a physician associate turned spiritual mentor, quantum healer, women's coach, and speaker. Welcome to The Voice That Sees. This podcast is an intimate dialogue on topics ranging from science and spirituality to alternative forms of healing, vulnerable storytelling, the esoteric ancient wisdom, the power of individual transformation, and how it impacts the collective evolution of humanity. Each episode, you will learn how to evolve by shifting your mindset and ways of being, express your vulnerability to heal and transform, and channel your emotions into self-expression, creating a greater impact in the world. Let's continue your journey together. Welcome back to another episode of The Voice That Sees. Today, I am really excited to share about a topic that I have been delving into a little bit more the last few years, which is the topic of power. And I know a lot of times when we're hearing about this word, it creates, this type of feeling inside, as in this feeling of someone's taking over, or this idea that power is aggressive and forceful. And what I want to go through is a beautiful breakdown of what power has evolved into for me the last few years, and how beautiful it is when we can really tap into the true essence of this beautiful energy. So power in its balanced form is not aggressive, and it's also not about dimming oneself and going so far to the opposite side where, sometimes people think they're being humble by pretending to be small or letting some compliments just fly off their back. In reality, sometimes even humility can be a sign of low self-esteem, because in true essence, power doesn't mean that you're trying to overrule someone or deny your gifts. It simply means that you're owning the essence of who you are. And in your most natural state, you are powerful. You do have the power to co-create your life, and you do have the power to bring certain seeds and intentions into your conscious awareness and then start taking aligned actions from that place of beautiful intention to birth those dreams into reality, and know that you do have a hand in that. It's not that you are just aligning with this will that's bigger than you. Yes, you are doing that if you're allowing yourself to surrender, which again is also so powerful. And it's also a co-creative dance where you're participating actively and doing your part in the unfolding. And you get to own that. You get to own your part in all of that. So a book that I read earlier this year, I highly recommend it. It's Power versus Force. And it's by Dr. David Hawkins. And I absolutely love that book and highly recommend it for anyone who is on a leadership path or feels that they might be being initiated into their path of self-leadership. It's a really beautiful book that actually is an immersive process, is how I would describe it. Meaning, as you're reading, there are going to be things in your life that are changing because your consciousness is rising to this higher vibration of what power can look like for you. And one of the things that's spoken about in the book is several examples are given about previous leaders who were truly powerful, not necessarily people who were taking up center stage and in the spotlight, like me, it's all me. It wasn't that type of energy. It was more so they knew who they were. They knew what they stood for. And they knew that they had to take charge and move forward in the direction of their vision, and to do it in a way that was unstoppable and truly leaning into faith as they fulfilled a vision that was far greater than themselves. And one of the examples that I love was Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi brought India to their independence. And while I've heard many different stories about him, and even as his own leadership may have been controversial at times, the underlying message and the true resonant leadership quality that I see in him that is something I admire, is that his leadership was not loud. It wasn't this forceful, aggressive type of leadership where he was trying to outsmart the British rule. He kept coming back to peace and honoring the fact that we all deserve to live a beautiful life with others, with ourselves, these lives of harmony and peace that come from deep within, and learning to live in harmony with our environments, with our ecosystems, with different people who may think differently than us and feel differently about certain social causes. It's okay. And yet, how can we still come together and live harmoniously? And so, something that was unlocking for me as I was reading this and really feeling in my body was all those times that I thought power had to be these super activating posts on social media, or that surge of energy that comes through when you're having a breakthrough and you suddenly are instantly sharing it with the world. Like it's this big, profound breakthrough that the whole world needs to know about before it's been embodied. And I can share that I have done that many times. And in truth, when I look back in hindsight, those were not my most powerful moments. And it's okay that I can honor that and acknowledge that rather than disregarding those moments in my life or trying to deny them. I totally own that. And yet, where I've evolved to, I can understand why I played into some of those dynamics previously. And a lot of it is societal conditioning. We grew up in a world that was heavy on media. Even as it continues to evolve, we grew up with magazines, with watching celebrities on television and looking at the way leadership has been modeled to us for so many years. And I would argue probably even centuries. And what we can see is that a lot of times, in order for people to have gotten what they wanted, they had to raise their voices. They had to become aggressive. They used violence at times in order to display their power, whether it was verbal abuse or physical violence. And so we're in a different era today. We're moving into this new paradigm where we're unlocking that power in its highest form is actually personal power. It's not the power that we use to try to be provocative or trigger or activate other people. Those things can happen naturally just by you being in your power. That can happen naturally for someone. However, it's not something you need to provoke in another to stand your ground. And this to me feels so profound, and I can't even put a word around it. It's almost like, whoa, that's how powerful I am. All I have to do is be myself, and that is power. When certain moments arise and you come back into that sense of peace, when normally you would have been easily activated and not known that you have the ability to make a conscious decision to breathe into that discomfort, to hold that emotion, whatever may be arising for you, and then allowing it to sort of discharge on its own. Because as you bring that attention and awareness to it, and it's met with love and presence, it has a power to soften and become transmuted into more love and acceptance in your body, in your psyche, and you feel it. And so that idea of peace, I'm remembering Mahatma Gandhi, that idea of peace that he embodied was so triggering for many people. It wasn't that everyone just came to him and said, okay, yeah, we're with you. No, he led a whole revolution. And through that embodiment of peace, India finally gained its own independence. And while there was still its own trauma, the country had its own trauma for many decades after to work through. And we're still seeing some, I would say, generational wounding around that, still honoring, even for women of color, I'm sure that this is coming up for many people, still giving certain people the right to think that they have more authority over us. These wounds and conditioning around things such as slavery and inequality, racism, they still live among us. However, as more of us are bringing these patterns and deep ancestral wounding to the surface of our own consciousness, we're able to then bring our mindset, bring our energy, bring all of us up to speed with our new reality and with the world that we are working to co-create. And from that place, we start taking different aligned actions, not by trying to change other people, not by being forceful against what other people are doing. Instead, by just coming back to ourselves and meeting ourselves with deeper love and acceptance and compassion. And as we do that, there's new layers of power that get unlocked. So it isn't that something that could be potentially triggering. It isn't that it can't happen. It can, and it's another opportunity for us all to deepen our own self-compassion, to ask ourselves what is coming up in this moment. And as we wrap those parts of us in love and embrace them deeper, we feel that deepening. And I find that the more I tune into this, the less I have to do to be in my power, because it's so embodied that all I have to do is be me. And that's how simple it gets to be. And it also wasn't an overnight process. It took many years, more than a decade, really. And I think what's accelerating it now is that my consciousness has shifted enough to know that we can keep moving forward. Like, we're going in the right direction and we can keep charging ahead. And it isn't this charge that we're trying to outrun or compete against anyone. It's like, I'm in my own lane. I'm surrendering as much as I can every day. And as I keep allowing myself to be present in the current moment and allowing others to have their own experience, I can meet myself in my own power and just be me authentically, living my life in alignment, allowing my purpose to evolve in its own time, and letting it be beautiful. It feels so powerful. There's been new power unlocked in my voice, in my expression, in being able to confidently assert my needs and my wants, my feelings, giving a voice to my feelings, all of it. It's all coming online at a new and higher level. And I know a lot of this was because I called my energy back and continued to pour that energy into myself. And again, I believe that that is an act of personal power. Instead of watching things on social media and letting myself lose hours to other people's thoughts and opinions, while all of it is okay, right? Like, everyone's allowed and entitled to have their own opinions. I'm also allowed to have boundaries around how much of my time and energy I focus on social media and other people's platforms and their ideas, which a lot of times are not even true or resonant for me. However, if I'm not aware of how these systems are programmed to be hypnotic and know how to bring people in, and if I give my power away so easily and don't use discernment in my daily life, then of course hours would go to social media. Of course hours would go to conversation with other people talking about their opinions for the whole hour. And so I couldn't change anyone else around me. I can only change myself. And what a gift that is, because any energy spent trying to change others, trying so hard to persuade other people outside of you, is not a good use of your energy. It's just not. And we're not supposed to. We're actually not supposed to be using our energy to try to change other people. In our most powerful state, as we are allowing ourselves to come home to who we really are and letting ourselves be seen in our authenticity, not this manipulated use of power, where we think that we need to be fierce at all times, that we need to be really loud. True power in its most pure energy is a state of being. I've gone to several conferences where I knew I was in a room full of a ton of successful people. And I know success has a broad definition. In this context, what I'm using it to describe is a person who has a mission. It's already expanding and scaling and doing really well. This person is creating powerful impact. They are meeting their goals, both short-term and long-term. Key initiatives within their company are being met, and they continue to scale up and grow and expand. And when I was in those rooms, hearing people talk about some vulnerable topics, not just success in terms of the impact, but also financial goals, money, partnerships, the personal growth that comes from an entrepreneurial journey. There were several times where I truly felt a little uncomfortable, as in, why am I in this room? I feel too small in this room. Why am I here? Why did I come to this? And in those moments, I stayed present to what I was feeling and allowed myself to expand into both the discomfort as well as the power that comes with meeting those deeper aspects within and allowing ourselves to transcend them. And usually the people that I felt the most triggered by, which it wasn't their fault, right? They weren't doing anything to trigger me. They were just being in their essence. And wherever I felt wobbly was already there within me. Usually the people who did that were the most humble. And what I mean by humble is that they knew their power. They owned their power, and you felt it in their aura. They didn't have to say anything. Their energy spoke before they were able to say any words. Their energy spoke for them, essentially. And they had this energy of, I have nothing to defend and nothing to prove. I just am. And that kind of energy makes you look twice. You look at a person and you're like, what is that? What are you radiating? What are you emanating? Because I can feel it. And there's really two things you can do in that instance, maybe three. One is you can just walk away because it's so uncomfortable. It's like, no, I can't do this. The other is maybe you walk away and you come back when it feels aligned, and that's okay too. And then the third option is that you stay with it. You stay with whatever discomfort is coming up to the surface. And as you're witnessing this discomfort, and as someone who's in their power is holding this high vibration, you may find that whatever has been in the field of resistance in your aura, in your energetic field, starts to shift. It starts to unravel. It starts to rise to the frequency of this person in their power. And there's really nothing you can do to make it happen. It's something you elevate in your own consciousness to rise to. And if you're able to do that in your perfect timing, it's so incredible, because by you shifting to the higher frequency and truly being in your power, rather than forcing outcomes, rather than trying to persuade people on social media about why they should be in your world, rather than wasting so much time pushing all your energy out. This is more of an energy of, I embody, I know how to call my energy back. I know who's right for me is coming to me. I also know that when that energy flows through and wants to move out, I'm conscious and intentional about that energy. So it's no longer about marketing just to market or persuading people with your ideas just to persuade. Everything moves with sacred intention. And as you're doing that, life starts to feel like a flow, which it really has, I would say, for the last 5 to 6 months of my life, pretty much this year. And while there have been some highs and lows in the beginning, especially, I was able to hold my power, even when it wasn't easy. And I learned something in that moment, which is that from that higher plane, you actually raise the frequency around you. And so the book talks about it, how when one person rises to a higher frequency, whether it's joy, abundance, love, peace, enlightenment, which is what everyone's striving for. I don't know that many people have reached that. Power. It actually raises the consciousness of the entire collective. And the book actually says something around the line of 10 million people are impacted by one person's evolution. 10 million people. That's huge, people. That's huge. That's a lot of people being impacted by one person's transformative evolution into a higher dimension, into a higher frequency. I want to take a moment to honor how beautiful that is and what a gift that is to both yourself and also this planet. And all you have to do is be you. We've been taught for most of our lives to be a certain size, to be a certain color, that a certain race, a certain culture is something that we need to be, certain skill sets, certain professions, jobs, in order to express our power. And we are literally entering a paradigm where more people are unlocking the power of their mind, the power of their own personal power, the power that sits within their solar plexus, in their belly, and understanding that they can use this awareness and these tools to move forward in making the best, most aligned decisions for themselves. And by them making the best decisions for themselves, the best outcomes are available instantly, both for them as well as for their community and their world. That's law. If you're doing something that's truly good for you, it's going to be good for others. For instance, something I hear from a lot of people when they're really at their wits' end and they think about their whole life going through a transition, one of the common themes that comes up for a lot of people is realizing they've been living most of their lives for other people instead of tuning into what really brings them happiness. Staying in a country for family, staying in a job because that's what they were told to do. They'll work this many years and have the retirement funds to live their lives after they retire, not even knowing if that's guaranteed, really. They choose to get married because that's what was told to them by society and by their culture, that a woman gets married by this age, no matter who it is, and you kind of just move forward in your life. And yet, we're on the brink of a new humanity. We are on the brink of a new humanity where more and more people are realizing that actually, just because this is the way that it's been done for so many people for so many years, it doesn't have to be this way forever. And if I can tune into what my heart is telling me, where my soul is guiding me, what my body knows to be true, its own wisdom, then I have the power to co-create the life that I do want. And that in me finding my happiness, this is probably most likely going to unlock the happiness for so many other people around me. And it's not because I'm shifting for them or I'm shifting them in any way. It's because my own happiness is an embodiment of my own beautiful divinity, my longings, and moving those longings into action and grounding them into my physical manifestation on this planet at this time. And by doing that, that makes others around me curious. Well, if she can do it, why couldn't I? This is personal power. And it's an energy you don't have to defend or prove. It's an energy that does not come with aggression or needing someone else to see things the way that I do. It's okay that we don't. In fact, I hope that it doesn't, because we're all entitled to our own beautiful perspectives. And in fact, that diversity actually makes us more united, because we might all have different flavors and preferences of what our happiness looks like, what it tastes like, what it feels like. And we all know what happiness is because it's universal. It's truth. Happiness can't just be available for one person and not for all. It's available to all of us at all times. Some questions I would invite you to ask yourself this week, and letting it be a beautiful, curious exploration. Where have you been giving your power away, and how? Has it been to certain foods you're eating? Has it been to certain thought patterns that you just keep reaffirming even though you know they're not good for you? Has it been by spending time with people that you know just are not adding value to your life? Have you allowed yourself to keep believing that there's no one else out there for you except the one miserable relationship you may have known for so long of your life or so much of your life? Are there any places in your life where you haven't allowed change to really come through and crack through the soil? Maybe because you're afraid of things being shaken up. And can you meet those parts of yourself with tenderness, honoring wherever you are in your journey and knowing that it is so perfect for you? And as you start to create this spaciousness by bringing your awareness to these places in your life and meeting them with such deep compassion and reverence and love, you'll notice that these parts of you start to soften. And the changes that you want to make in your life can be gradually transitioned into, again, in its own beautiful timing. Because as you trust your own power to rise, you can trust that other people who are right for you, who are a vibrational match for your energy, will also rise to that, or are already in that frequency and coming into your world. And it's in your power to choose who you're available for, what thought patterns you're available for, what ideas and opportunities you would like to entertain versus which ones are safe to let go. And it becomes less of this rigid structure and more of a dance. I find that if we remember that our bodies, technically our human physical vessels, are finite. However, our divine potential is infinite. And so our bodies are not limiting us, but we have to understand that they are limited in nature just because it's a form. However, this is a beautiful thing too, because our bodies bring and carry so much wisdom that they can tell us our limitations, as in, I've had enough of this for the day. I can't really put more here. Or this doesn't feel right, and I'm noticing the sensation that I feel in my body. And I'm witness to that. And I'm honoring that by taking a more empowering action that helps me move in the direction I would like to go in. And it's our infinite potential that helps us realize that even though these bodies are finite, we are still so powerful that we can expand infinitely, because that's what we're here to do. As we remember our power and keep coming back to our power, we remember that we are here for infinite expansion. And that's what divinity is trying to do at all times. It's that energy of creative potential that is moving through us so freely at all times. And where we can do our part is in understanding those patterns, those thoughts, our mindset, and shifting our own energy behind that. And as we marry awareness and energy and intention and movement, embodiment with all of this life becomes a beautiful creative dance. And it's so much less about doing and more about who we are being. And the more that you can be in your power, you will see that reflected back to you in your reality. A lot of times power can be quiet. And so it's not often noticed the first time around. For me in college, I remember that I used to think the loudest person in the room was the most powerful because they're usually the ones that got all the attention. And the more that I really got to know people and understand sometimes the different thought processes that are happening behind people who speak loudly or feel the need to get attention all the time. And also learning from people who are so quiet and had such a beautiful magnetic presence to them. I learned that power is actually quiet. It doesn't mean it's the person who has nothing to say. It just means they can speak less and say more. Let that one land. Let these codes of true aligned personal power unlock. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Voice That Sees. Please be sure to check out more episodes every other Tuesday on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you listen to your podcast. For additional content, you can follow me on Instagram at The Yoga Movement and YouTube at The Yoga Movement NYC. You can also check out my coaching programs and unique offers on my website at theyogamovementnyc.com to help support your individual and personal transformation. Until next time, be you and be well.